So, to understand first how and why the Canadians ended up in the Philippines, we have to explore the origins of the Scarborough Missions. Tony Martin came from the Scarborough Foreign Mission Society. It was created in 1918 and was based in Scarborough, Ontario, Canada. It was originally called the China Mission Seminary, and its primary mission was to convert the Chinese to Christianity. But the Scarborough Missions made very little progress in China because the Chinese essentially rejected Christianity. Father Harvey Steele, who worked in China, accurately summed up the attitudes of both the Chinese and Christian missionaries in this period in his 1993 biography, Dear Old Rebel. Father Steele asked a local Chinese why he didn't accept Christianity. The Chinese replied, "Your religion has no relevance for us. You have nothing to offer that we want." The man continued to call the Chinese who converted to Christianity as rice Christians, the morally least reputable citizens who only want free rice, free medicine, or free schooling for their children. Another group of missionaries who had been in China longer than the Canadians were French missionaries called the Vincentians, named after St. Vincent de Paul. At a dinner hosted by these French missionaries, an old French priest approached one of the newly arrived Canadians and asked them, "Who are you?" The Canadian replied, "I am a Scarborough priest. We just arrived here from Canada." The old French priest asked, "What for?" The Canadian replied, "I came to help the Chinese save their souls." The old French priest replied, "You're crazy. The Chinese don't have souls." Lee Kuan Yew, the Prime Minister of Singapore, a Buddhist himself, perfectly explained why Christianity never overwhelmed the Chinese. He explained that because Chinese civilization had been around for 5,000 years, it already had very well-entrenched customs, traditions, and belief systems that it was able to repel Western Christian influences. In fact, the Chinese even believed that Western culture was inferior to theirs. Lee Kuan Yew said the same thing about the Indians and the Japanese. The Asians, he added, always considered Christianity as alien to their culture. What hurt the Scarborough Missions in trying to win over the Chinese was the prevailing suspicion that all foreigners coming into China had hidden imperialistic agendas. Due to the violence inflicted on them by Western European powers, the Chinese were naturally suspicious. Father Harvey Steele accurately summed up this suspicion by saying, "The Chinese had an understandable prejudice against all of us. From the viewpoint of the Chinese, we always broke our word. The missionary always brought the trader, and the trader was quickly followed by the gunboat." By 1949, however, the Chinese weren't seeing any gunboats on its shores. Instead, it was seeing masses of communist soldiers coming in from the interior and spilling over into the cities. It was Mao Zedong's army who had been battling Chiang Kai-shek's government since the 1930s. After a 20-year war, China finally fell to the communists in 1949, and shortly after, all Western Christian missionaries, including Canadian missionaries, were kicked out of China. By 1950, after its mission in China had ended and its namesake no longer reflected the new reality, the China Mission Seminary changed its name to Scarborough Foreign Missions. The Scarborough Missions then had to disperse its remaining China-based missionaries to other outposts, the Dominican Republic, Japan, Guyana, and the Bahamas. In 1954, a Filipino bishop, Lino Gonzaga, paid a visit to Scarborough Missions and asked for priests who could take over 4 parishes in the island of Leyte in the Philippines. Coincidentally, this was not the first time the Philippines and Scarborough Missions crossed paths. In fact, the founder of Scarborough Missions, John Mary Fraser, was in Manila in 1941, after having narrowly escaped the Japanese army in China. Waiting for a ship to take him back to Canada, John Mary Fraser, grateful to be alive and eager to leave war behind, clasped his rosary, got on his knees, and looked up to the sky to say thanks to his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for delivering him from the jaws of death. But instead of seeing a beautiful ray of sunshine breaking through the clouds and a white dove descending to shower him with God's loving warmth, John Mary Fraser saw 2 red dots on a pair of wings coming towards him. It wasn't a dove, it was a Japanese Zero. World War II had just broken out, and Manila would soon fall to the Japanese. John Mary Fraser, after escaping the Japanese the first time, found himself running from the Japanese the second time. Now off his knees and cursing under his breath, John Mary Fraser's skinny frame ran through the streets of Manila in tandem with other Filipinos, dodging Japanese bullets. Still clasping his rosary and hoping for a second divine intervention, John Mary Fraser looked back up the sky hoping for another sign, only to see more Japanese pilots waving at him. John Mary Fraser's luck ran out. He would spend the next 3 years as a prisoner of war in the Philippines.